G'day! Welcome to True Blue History. I'm Adam Blum. Today's special guest is Rach Ranton, former Australian Army soldier and an award-winning leader in the corporate and military worlds. Rach is a former TED speaker and she is passionate about leadership, culture, teamwork and courage. Hi Rach, thanks for joining us on the show.
Hey Adam, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, for you, one of your primary reasons for enlisting was because you were desperate to escape your small country town. And initially, you were going to join the Navy. Did you see the military as the only option you had to leave your town? And did you have a plan B in case you didn't get into the Navy?
Yeah, so, I guess everyone has different experiences growing up in country towns, you know. Some people really love it. Some people can't wait to get out and probably everything in between. For me, I think, you knew that when you left, you'd either be leaving to go to uni, you'd need to leave to get a job, you'd be leaving for, a variety of different reasons. And that for most kids growing up there, you knew that stepping out of the country town was going to be the next thing. So I think what was attractive about the military for me was the adventure, like that I'd be definitely going somewhere really far away from where I'd grown up, and that I'd be doing stuff that seemed really interesting and it was just so different to what I had actually done in life prior to that point. Navy was my initial look in, and I went, okay, cool. Navy looks really cool. I want to be like a electrician's technician or something like that. I think I'd picked out as I'd gone through and looked at it all, and got my folks to take me. I was still 17, so I was in Victoria. You didn't have your Ps then, so I had to get my folks to give me a ride into Albury-Wodonga, which was the big local town nearby, and go to recruiting. I rocked up and went to the front desk and said, hey, I'm here to talk about joining the Navy. And a bloke in an army uniform said, oh, the Navy guy's not here, but, it's all pretty much the same. You can just come and talk to me. And that's how I ended up in the army. It definitely wasn't something that I had a lot of planning around. It just seemed like a really cool, adventurous lifestyle, and definitely one that would get me, in a whole new world. Plan B, I had applied to uni and I'd been accepted into uni down in Melbourne at Monash, so I was going to go down there, and I think law was the direction I wanted to go and manoeuvre into, but that was going to be a whole lot more of that obligation to your parents and those relationships, and I was really ready for a change, and so I don't know what would have happened if I didn't get accepted into the military at that point, but yeah, out of there was the big motivation, definitely.
So for you, what made you become an electronics welfare operator?
Yeah, at the time that I joined, not everyone was enlisted into their trade. So a bunch of people, you'd go to recruiting, you'd go do your aptitude testing, you'd be told you're accepted into the army, and then you'd go to Kapooka, and you wouldn't actually find out what job you were going to do until the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks at Kapooka. But for me, I was core enlisted, and so I knew when I went to Kapooka that I was going to do electronic warfare. They took us through a bunch of testing and aptitude stuff. They sort of said, these are the types of jobs that are open to you. They've got a big list, A through K categories, and they said pretty much you can do whatever you want. I said, that's fantastic. Tell me about these jobs because I know nothing about them. And the dude at recruiting said to me, well, this one, you get to learn a lot of secrets and you get the highest pay grade. I'm like, that sounds fabulous. Please sign me up immediately. Clearly that's a pitch that works with lots of young people. Sounds super cool. And I was in.
So how was basic training for you? What was that like, going from a small country town to then getting to Kapooka and going, oh, I'm at basic training? What was that like for you?
It was a big shock for me. And I guess that's the purpose of that facility, is to actually shock people and, reshape them into soldiers and who the military needs you to be. For me, one of the things I was worried about was like my fitness. I was like, I don't really do a lot of running. I play a bit of sport, and the guys at recruiting were like, it's no big deal, mate. You'll be fine. That was a fucking lie. I was not fine. I really struggled with running. And I was able to make it through and hit the numbers that I needed to hit, but never a strength for me. And definitely throughout recruit training, you're at the edge of your capability all the time, whether that's you're physically exhausted, you're mentally exhausted, you're being asked to learn new things you've never learnt before and complete them with absolute perfection. You're just being pushed to your limits all the time. And, on top of that, not having that real grounding in a really good physical capability meant that I've found Kapooka really tough. It's interesting, you talk to everyone and they just have completely different experiences when they come out of there. Some people loved every moment and saw it for what it was. Other people, there's a lot of fear or a lot of, self-doubt and all those sort of things. I look at it now and I can see it for what it was, what the purpose of that place is, and how they need to force you to find your character, find how to dig into your resolve and give more, find more, do more. You don't know those things about yourself and where those limits really are until you're forced right to the edges of them. And I think, that's what Kapooka does in different ways for different people. And definitely for me there, I came in, I was a pretty, I don't know, I still am probably a fairly defiant sort of person. I like to buck trends and do what I'm not supposed to. And so, Kapooka really did a good job getting me back on the straight and narrow there. But also taught me that, that could be a strength later on, to have the ability to ask questions or to want to do things differently, that despite the fact that they really get you on board with being a soldier and what that means, they don't beat that out of you. I've retained that my whole life, that questioning nature and that curiosity. And so I think the Australian Army does that really well. They want to retain you within who they want to make you be.
I guess for you too, Rach, it'd be hard, and especially being 17, like, to learn these new skills that you have never used before, and still further and know those points of pushing yourself. So yeah, it's absolutely, like, you would have known, it would have been hard.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, I was a pretty arrogant 17-year-old. I'm a pretty arrogant 42-year-old, actually. Like, some things don't change. But at the time, you could call your parents and say, please get me out of here because you're still underage. And I remember definitely having those conversations going, oh my God, what have I done? And my folks just saying, just stick it out and you'll be okay. And, that was the case. If you can just tough things out, you can get through a lot more than you think you can. And
you've hit the nail on the head. Like, as you said, sometimes you need to challenge yourself in the hardest conditions to know actually how mentally tough you are.
Yeah. And, I'm at a very reflective stage of my life now, right? I look back on things and I go, oh, wow, that's a lesson. I just have to keep learning over and over again. And that piece about, like, just keep showing up, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's doing something you don't think you're going to be able to be successful at, whether it's going to the gym or trying to change something about your habits. Like, it's not the actual specific skill set or technical ability that makes the really big difference. It's your determination to just keep showing up, and that consistency in showing up that I think is what makes the difference. And for me at Kapooka, when I was really not where I needed to be fitness wise, just showing up was enough to get me through that period and get me into the next phase of my career where I could find the bits that I was good at, where I could make up that gap in my fitness, and where I could really start to thrive.
I feel for you, it's the military training that you learnt when you were 17 that carries you through to where you are now at 42, to learn new skills and keep pushing yourself and keep pushing those boundaries to go, yeah, I'm actually going to keep turning up even though I've been wiped out, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely true. And how can it not shape you, right? At 17 in those formative years still, like, absolutely, the military's been a huge influence on who I am and who I think I am and how I identify and all those things. It definitely has. Very kind of you to talk about me catching waves and doing a great job. Like, I'm definitely on the world's most giant surfboard and I'll spend a lot of time in the whitewater. But yeah, you're right. Surfing's been great for me to realise that it is a just keep showing up thing. And whether that's related to, your 10,000 hours that Malcolm Gladwell talks about, becoming an expert, it's actually it's the time you put into something that's what gets you the results, not vigorous practice, then nothing. And so, yeah, I'm loving learning that lesson again with surfing, and to just, keep rocking up, good days or bad, or getting smashed up and dumped, or whether I'm succeeding, it's the rocking up that counts.
For me, it's a word that comes to my mind, Rach, is patience. You've got to have patience.
Oh, I fucking definitely don't have patience. I probably need some, but I definitely don't. It's enormously frustrating to me to not be immediately successful at something. Like, pisses me off. I'm like, why am I not on the pro tour already? Like, I've been doing this for months now. So again, it's a lesson I just have to keep learning for myself. I'm not patient. I am tough. I want to be successful at things. I want to be cool at it, not be the loser that still is catching whitewash and looking very, very unco when I'm doing so. But I know I can't get there by wishing or wanting. I'm not a naturally talented sports person. And there's lots of other things in my life that, doesn't always come easy, right? I just have to keep showing up. And
it's a really key point that you touch on. Nothing in life is given to you. You've got to work hard at it, and it takes time. You've got to be bold sometimes and go out and get outside your comfort zone. And early on in your career, you talk about you got some pretty brutal feedback, and about being a dickhead. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what is it that changed your way of being a dickhead in your words, not my words, your words. Not my words, your words.
Yep. I think one of the things that's a real strength of the military is that people tell you exactly what they think. So people deal in the truth. You'll get found out really quickly if you're big noting yourself or over exaggerating things. You'll get found out really quickly if you say you've done something and you haven't done something. And so that value of trust really comes from truth telling. People have to call it like it is because you don't have time for the bullshit when everything's actually really going down. You don't have time to wade through, is that person overestimated their capability or are they actually going to be able to deliver that for me when it comes to holding a position or delivering me intelligence. And so early in my career in the army, I was just being annoying and just doing the wrong thing and just not delivering what I needed to for my teammates. And, one of my corporals pulled me inside and said, look, I can, what's going on, Rach, is you are being a dickhead. I know you're not trying to be a dickhead, but this is the feedback from your teammates. They're saying your behaviour is dickheadly and you've got to do something about this. And she gave me a bunch of examples of, stuff that I'd done that hadn't helped out and gave me a bunch of examples of things that, that she expected of me and thought I should have done better and said, you're more capable than this and you're playing the joker and it's not working, right? You've got to just actually knuckle down and deliver this shit for yourself and for the team.
Why were you acting out? Was it that you, like you said when early on when you were 17, that you wanted it your way, or what was it?
I think probably a lot of it was you're trying to be accepted in this new group, and you're a chick, and you're very much in the minority there. You want to be accepted and liked, and you're included, and all of those things. So you're trying to work hard, consciously and unconsciously, to minimize your differences and to try and be as much like everyone else as you can, which includes lots of dickhead behavior, right? But she really helped me understand that I don't have to do that. I actually, the most important thing for me to do is to deliver on the professionalism in my job, and then I can be whatever else I want to be around that. And so it was helpful, like hard to hear. Shit, that's hard to hear. And I think it is. We're disinclined to give that sort of feedback to people when they work in our team. And but we're doing them a disservice when we don't tell them. If you can't tell people what they're not delivering on, how can they ever change that behaviour? They don't want to hear it in their annual end of year report and go, well, you gave me no chance to fix this. Like, you actually... you're helping them by telling them as early as possible in their career or in their job or when they start with you that, hey, this part of what you're doing isn't working or isn't gelling with the team, or we need more out of you, and exactly what that looks like. It's tough feedback to give and it's tough feedback to hear, but it's enormously helpful in helping people understand what they need to do to be really successful.
So would you say at that point of your being told that you're being a dickhead, would you say that that was a turning point in your career, and also some of the inspirational leaders that you had and identify in your book that we'll talk about later? Was that a key moment for you in your army career, do you think?
I guess so. Like, there's lots of things that happened before that and after that, right? I guess when I was thinking about what I was writing for the book, that whole element of truth telling was something that's such a strength of the army. And I wanted to find a story that helped people understand what does truth telling look like, because everybody thinks they're telling the truth. And particularly in teams, leaders talk a lot about like, yeah, well, I want to hear the truth, or I want to tell the truth. And often they don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear the platitudes about what the company line is. But I think, it was definitely important for me, but in that context of the book, it was about me looking for what's a story that can help people who haven't been in the military understand just what I mean by telling the truth. And it is saying, yeah, you are being a dickhead.
And we've all been there in our personal lives and professional lives as well. So yeah, I like it. Like it's to the point. It's saying, hey, and we've all been in that point in our life where someone said, mate, you're being a dickhead. Stop being a dickhead and actually wake up to yourself. And it's a key point you touch on. So, well done for putting it as boldly as you did. So your first deployment is to East Timor. Yeah. Can you tell us you were deployed before your 21st birthday? Yeah. How was that for you, and what was that experience like, being in country and then having your 21st birthday over in East Timor?
Yeah, so the military really hadn't gone anywhere on any large scale for such a long time prior to that, when I joined the Army, operational service wasn't really something that I thought would be a part of my story. I thought I'd go out bush a bit, do a few kangaroo exercises, and that might be where it all ended. So when East Timor came up, I was really... I didn't expect to be included. So I didn't have the right language skill set to be going on that deployment, but I did have machine gun qualification. I could drive a Unimog. I had a few other things or whatever that they went, well, we don't have enough people with the right language. We've got to take people who else has got skill sets we need, and that was enough to get me on the trip. And it was a huge learning experience when I got there in every way. We'd practiced prior to that. So I joined the Army in 97. We were in Timor at the end of 99. So I was only in the Army for a couple of years, right? And we'd practice embedding during exercises and that sort of stuff. So EW elements, you usually don't deploy by yourself as a standalone element. You embed with infantry or armoured or some other forward element so that you're as close to the battlefront as possible so you can hear everything you need to hear, and you're also working within those elements so that they're protecting you and you're able to gather the intelligence that protects everybody. So although we'd practiced that in some ways, I really felt at that point I hadn't done it for real. And so the first mission I was put on was to embed with the New Zealand infantry, and we were choppering into Suai Airfield, and we were going to be able to go in teams in Black Hawks into Suai Airfield, jump out of the helicopters, secure the physical ground first, and then sweep through, decide where we were going to set up, and then start to collect intelligence. And I was utterly unprepared. Like, I was prepared, as in we'd practiced, we'd trialed, like I knew everything I needed to do technically, but it was just such a huge step up from what we'd done prior to that. I didn't really think about it at the time though. Like, you want it. That's why you're there. That's why you join the Army. You want to be selected for things. You want to be the person that they choose because they think you've got the best capability. You want to go and do all the cool shit that is possible. And so that was how I felt at the time. Later on when I look back at that, I go, wow, 20, you were fresh-faced and eager, but oh my God, were you really everything you needed to be at that point? But the other people in my team, a couple of really great dudes in that team that, you all work together. You bring all of your strengths into what you're going to do there to be able to succeed. I had my first concert I ever saw in East Timor as well. So John Farnham came to Akusi, which is the little sort of enclave part of East Timor that's on the other side of the island. And that was my very first concert. And then not long after that, I turned 21. I turned 21 in Feb and I was home probably March that year. So I don't know, I guess it does change you. It makes you a bit older and gives you a bit of a different perspective on the world. I'd not been to a lot of third world countries, or definitely not any that had been through the sort of trauma that the East Timorese people had been through at that point. I think we were chatting earlier and, one of the things that I found tough about Timor in that early period was that when I look back on it now, I go, you felt very helpless. A lot of the things where we arrived in a village, the atrocities and the slaughter and the people that were dead, and they were still trying to deal with their dead and grieve them and, bury them. That was happening in the days and weeks just before we arrived. And so that guilt about what if we had come a bit earlier, or what if we had been there a few days before, I think that was one of the toughest things about the East Timor deployment. It was, although, I wasn't in any contacts or anything like that, you are dealing with the aftermath of what happened there, and that can make you feel a little helpless that could I have done more?
Did you feel that you, like, with the purpose that you went over for, when you left and came back and on reflection, do you feel that you achieved the goal that you actually were set when you're in country, or do you still feel a sense of all these years later? Do you still feel a sense that you didn't achieve what you set out to do at first?
I think in terms of what the mission was there, it was to liberate East Timor, and so that was achieved, and be able to push others out of that territory, and so we were also able to do that. So, like, in terms of sense of satisfaction that the mission, that whilst we were there on that particular deployment, were we able to do that? Yeah, there was a sense of satisfaction that we were able to achieve the things on that mission. But then clearly when you look back at that, then there's dips and falls. We pulled out of Timor because it was tick, mission accomplished. It was not, it wasn't in terms of what needed to happen for that community to really thrive and succeed. So, I think you sort of put aside some of that when you're right there on the ground. So you understand your mission within the broader context of the mission, and you concentrate on delivering my part of that, which is, understand what the enemy are doing, keep people safe, make big decisions about where we should be or what we think is going to happen. And so a lot of the time when you're there, you're not thinking about, is this the broader political mission that I have been sent here to achieve? You're very much focused on your job in your team to protect your people and everyone that you interact with. And so I think that's what you walk away with in terms of sense of satisfaction. Sometimes it can be hard to come back and then look at that broader context. Was it really? But where you concentrate on what were the bits I had control of and did I achieve the things that I could within that scope, then yeah, I think we did.
So tell us your experiences of working alongside the Kiwis when you were over in East Timor.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Like, super inclusive straight away. Right, who's kind of come in with us? Great, we've got these three peeps. Let's start training for getting in and out of choppers in a manner that's going to keep us all safe. They're really good. We did maybe I don't know if it was 2 days or 1 day's worth of training about that insert, and then how we were going to, once we got onto the ground, where we were going to fit, because, they're the experts at securing ground and clearing areas, and we're not. And so how do we make sure we don't get in anyone's way that we shouldn't? At the same time, we're not, but they... one of the reasons that I got selected in that was because they wanted the additional firepower, and I was a machine gunner. So they were like, great, although this is not your primary job, come over here. You're the second gun on the left. And so as we come out of the chopper, we want you to go here, be here. These are three people with extra ammo beside you, just in case anything goes wrong. So they were unreal. And that's been true of every deployment I've gone on, and every... team I've embedded with. In the most cases, they don't have chicks. In most cases, they might not have ever worked with electronic warfare before. So some people in section might not even understand, what the hell are you doing here to support us? It might only be the commander that knows that. But despite those challenges, I've always felt really included, really accepted, really, the teams that I've joined have worked hard to make sure we feel comfortable and that we know that we're valued, and that it doesn't take very long if people don't know what you can do in terms of EW. Certainly when we went to Afghanistan, it didn't take very long to be able to prove what we could do to keep everyone safe. And then they were like, yes, please, come on every patrol.
So what was the most challenging part of being deployed to East Timor, and what did you gain from that experience?
What I gained was absolutely an understanding of doing the job in the field, being able to deliver on what we practice for years and years and years, to actually be able to do that live. That was a real understanding of the value of our job. That was huge, because that really drove me on throughout the rest of my career to understand how I could bring that value to all sorts of different teams. What was challenging? I mean, there was heaps of things that were challenging about it in all sorts of different realms. My other half at the time was posted to Bougainville, and so he was overseas. When I went overseas, I wasn't even able to tell him. This is the late 90s, right? So pre-mobile phones and all that sort of stuff. I wasn't even able to tell him that I was going until they arranged a sat phone hook up for us between Dili and Bougainville for me to go, right, so the dogs are at a mate's place, the car's at the barracks, the keys are at the front gate. Logistically, it seems like a ridiculous thing, but that was, something that was really challenging to try and coordinate just our lives when there was so much going on. Timor was very much, at that point, rat packs. You were on hard rations the entire time you were there. And because I frequently was included to move forward with elements going forward at each stage, as the mess would come in behind us and get ready and get set up, you'd go forward again, back onto hard rations. Things were pretty rustic. You were definitely shitting in a hole in the ground, and every now and then you'd go and burn that out. It was pretty rustic, but it was also normal. That was what we had trained to do, and that was what the army looked like at the time. So it was, I don't know, that, the physicality of it was obviously really challenging as well. We were wearing sort of plates front and back, body armor wise, not full body armor that we wore in Afghanistan, but just the plates. You're carrying your webbing, you're carrying your weapon, you're carrying all your gear, or a bunch of food, all that sort of stuff. And so it was pretty heavy going. I was pretty small at the time. I was maybe around 50 kilos when I went over there, and that's the gear you're carrying, because we were also carrying all our intercept gear at the same time. So, you're carrying your body weight, you can't get off the ground. So there's a lot of physical demanding things by then. But what was great is that, that culture shock of Kapooka and realising how far I was from where I needed to be really put a fire up my ass about getting strong enough to be able to be valuable, not just to be able to keep up with the dudes, but actually be a really valuable member of the section. And so by the time we went to Timor, I was in a much better space about that and was really able to deliver value in a lot of different ways.
So you come back from East Timor, and then we go forward to, and I'll bring this in, September 11, the attacks on the World Trade Centers. What at that point changed in the army for you guys, and what did you feel that because of those attacks, did you sense something was going to change with the army, or what was it like after those attacks? And where were you when you saw the planes go into the World Trade Center?
Yeah, it was a huge, globally, it is a moment that people know where they are and know what was happening and all that sort of stuff. We're at a mate's wedding on the Sunshine Coast, who was military mates that were getting married or whatever. And, it was, it almost looked like it wasn't real. I remember we saw it, and the first tower had been struck. But I think that, we were watching live here in Australia in that early morning, that as the second plane hit, the base immediately went into lockdown, and we all got called in to come and man guard duty out the front gate. So things were pretty lax prior to that around front gates and who could come in. People could come in and play golf and didn't really need any security things signed off. You had a hip-high fence that was just a bit of chain link, and, a lot of that physical security stuff really changed post-September 11. For us, I don't think I knew that there was going to be imminently something that would be a huge change for us. A lot of the things, we didn't know what that was going to mean, but it just meant that things were going to be different.
You deployed to Afghanistan in 2007, so obviously 6 years after the World Trade Centers. So what were you doing in that time from September 11 to your deployment to Afghanistan?
So I had a baby. So in 2002, we had our son. I was 22. I was very well equipped to be making major life decisions like deciding to have children. I thought I was at the time. And that was our next logical step. So I had Will in 2002. We posted down to the School of Languages in 2003 in Melbourne, and so spent a year there learning language. Both my partner and I, he's also an EW operator. There's a lot of inbreeding in the trade. And so we both went down there, learned a language for a year, and then were posted to Canberra for 2 years after that. So 0405, we were both posted to Canberra as analysts in the team at what was Defence Signals Directorate at the time. So that's the strategic posting for our trade. When you're up near Toowoomba there, you're in the tactical sort of unit, and that's where you do get deployed overseas from, and where you go and do things embedded with other tactical units. The strategic part of the job is, understanding the broader intelligence picture globally. And I think it was something that I didn't think was sexy at all at the time. I was like, oh, this is going to be boring. I'll be driving a desk. But actually it's... and it was an incredible experience that gave me a real breadth of understanding as to what assets were available, or what type of picture could we be building if we collaborated with other people, that I would not have had to take with me to Afghanistan if I hadn't have done that posting that I thought I didn't want to do. And that, again, we talk about what are these themes that come up in your life, right? Another one for me is definitely, saying yes to stuff, and when I'm sent somewhere that I don't think's going to be cool, just chucking myself into it anyway, because there's always something you can learn. There's always something that is going to help you have a better understanding, a deeper understanding, a broader understanding. There's something you get out of everything, even if you think it's just going to suck balls the whole time. You'll learn something from that experience, and so I'm really glad that we posted there. By that stage, so 2004 and 5 we were there, and I knew that I was posting back to the regiment in 2006, and I knew that I was already selected for the team that would be going to Afghanistan. And so our son was 4 at the time, and so I had pretty much a whole heap of prep, months and months and months of prep prior to deploying to Afghanistan. That meant that, Damo, my other half, was doing all of the parenting as well as his own career at the time. And so, just a big change, it was, having a family. I'd done a bit of study at uni and that sort of thing. We'd done all these different things that were within our trade and within our careers still. But, that took us all the way up to getting ready to go to Afghanistan.
So you get deployed to Afghanistan, and you share a story of a mission that took place on a freezing winter night. Could you share with us that story and why you wrote it in your book? Yeah, so
the one about telling the commander we need to move? Yeah. So we're embedded with infantry, armoured, like all the battle group that went forward. So that would be around 100 odd people that would go out. And we'd normally have 2 EW operators and an interpreter that would go with us that would provide that in that intelligence. So that view of what are the enemy doing around us, where are they, what are their behaviours, what do they plan to do. That's our job on the ground there. I was the only girl on patrol when I would go on patrol. And also one of the other EW operators in our team, though, was a chick too. So when she went on patrol, they split us. She was the only chick on patrol as well. And on that trip, we were embedded in all the patrols. Anytime we went out the front gate, there was EW operators there, and so we were there on the ground. We'd been on a bunch of patrols prior to that, so I don't know, we'd been there, well, it's winter, right? So it must have been December or January, something like that. And it was cold. Oh my God, the cold, it's like your body can almost not remember it. It's such a painful experience. You're sitting in the back of the car operating all night. So we provide 24-hour support when we're there, and you're in all this great gear. You've got Zamberlan boots on. You've got like puffy parka. They're like a sleeping bag pants on and all this sort of stuff. But you're still just iced to the bone. And I don't know whether that's, what's under those bushies to be able to disperse the IDs in that big V-shaped hull is a heap of, water or liquid, and whether that freezes out and that adds to the coldness. But oh my God, it was just, you were immobile. It was so, so cold. And so as we're sitting there overnight trying to understand what is going on, we do start to hear what the enemy are doing, and they start to disclose what sort of, how they're going to approach us. They're counting our vehicles. They're talking about us. And you're always trying to cross-check, is that us, or is it some other group? Is it something else that they're doing? How far away might they be? You're trying to apply critical thinking and analytical skills to this happening right now. I'm getting new information on top of the picture I already know. And so what do I think that means? And what do I think they're going to do? There's a lot of using a lot of brain power because you're trying to deal with the new information that you're getting, but trying to understand it in a broader context. And, we got to the point where I went, that is us. We're going to have to wake up the boss and tell him. And, you go and get the boss, and, they know that if you're waking them up, that must mean something of pretty big significance. And we said, yeah, they're going to approach us. They're going to come up the creek line in teams of 1 and 2, and this is what they're going to look like. This is, we didn't know their intent. They weren't talking about their intent. They were talking about the weaponry they were bringing with them. And so the battle group commander was able to get everyone up at once. That's a major or whatever. And at this time, I'm a corporal. I'm a total baggy ass, many, many ranks below. But the work that we'd been able to do prior to that point meant that there was a lot of trust in our calls. Regardless of rank, people didn't second guess us. They asked great questions to help us make sure we were thinking in the right directions. But they trusted us, and that they wanted to act on information that we had. So the whole patrol gets up, we're all facing out, we're all waiting to see what is going to happen, and we start to see these people approach in exactly the formations that they talk about in the 1s and 2s with the weapons that we were expecting and all that sort of stuff. That ability to be able to engage with them straight away because we were ready is a huge advantage, and can often mean that you don't actually need to get involved in a contact or have any fire exchanged. You can actually just control that situation without that, because they've got no element of surprise. You've removed all of that. And so, that was, there was a lot going on there about prior to that point. The commander had asked where we wanted to be, where we wanted to set up, and he wanted to set up in a spot that I went, we're not going to be able to provide you with intelligence from there. We want to be on higher ground. We want to be in a different side of the hill. And he, again, that trust, he said, okay, that's cool. We will move to that position. I feel really lucky to have worked for leaders like that they didn't have ego about how far down the rank structure someone was. They didn't have ego about whose opinion it was or whether it challenged theirs. What they wanted was the right information to make the best decisions. And, I definitely experienced that in Afghanistan and in all sorts of times in my military career. I've been really lucky. I understand it's not everyone's experience, but for me, I've always felt like people wanted to hear what I had to say. People wanted to know what my opinion was, and that didn't always go my way. They didn't make the decision based on what does Rach think, but that what I thought was considered and formed part of their decision-making process. So it was a pretty big moment. I was 20 7 or something like that, and definitely not someone senior on that patrol at all. And, you know, to realise that's the power you have because you've got that level of trust makes you go, shit, I need to be the best I fucking can at my job every single time, every moment, every time we're on patrol, for every minute of that, I want to be delivering everything I can because that's going to make the difference.
So tell me, Rach, your thoughts of when you were deployed to Afghanistan. You were one of the first females to go outside the wire. What was that like for you? What were your thoughts of, like you mentioned in your book, you spoke to your dad, and he brought up that, hey, Rach, you could be killed. What was that like for you? Like
Timor, they said, they told me, now look, they probably tell every woman this ever, right? So I'm definitely not claiming to be anything, but they're like, you're probably going to be one of the first women, you know, in a combat zone. So when I called my folks at 20, I'm like, hey, guess what? They told me. And my folks were like, oh, that's not as cool as you think it sounds. You know, that it's a different sense of fatality, I guess, when you're not 20. But when I went to Afghanistan, they told us the same thing too. Me and the other chick that were both going to be on patrols. You know, you guys will be the first chicks ever in Australian Army, you know, women in a combat situation. And I was like, well, you told me that a decade ago, so it can't all be true, right? There must be many other women that have actually done this and you've told this to. But, you know, in terms of both of those times and going out where you know you are the only woman on patrol and that you know that you're in a minority and you potentially are forging new ground, you just want to perform. You just want to do the job so that, you know, our job is everyone stays safe, or as much as you can control that environment. You want to be able to deliver. You want to be a great team member. You want to be able to do your job to the best of your capability. You want to be able to, you know, perform so that people ask for you. And that is, you know, I was lucky to have opportunities where we found intelligence that gave us that sort of, you know, gravitas within the patrol group that people did ask for you. They said you can't roll out without EW. They'd ask for you by name. That's who we want on patrol. And, you know, I think that's a hard thing to shake when you leave the military, that not everybody is doing that around you. Not everybody who rocks up to their job every day is trying to deliver their maximum performance with everything that they've got, because of course the real world does not require that. The implications of you half-arsing something is no big deal for a lot of the time in the real world, but it is a really fucking big deal in the military. You can't have the people around you half-arsing. You want all their ass. And so you get used to delivering at that peak performance. And so it's a real change when you're not in that environment anymore. So, you know, I think I'm enormously lucky that people took a chance on me and gave me those opportunities to step into that space. I'm really grateful that they were open-minded enough to go, well, it doesn't really matter what your gender is. We think you're the right person to do this. And that happened time and time again for me in my career. I'm really lucky that I had great leaders that were interested in what they thought you could do, and that's who they'd put forward. And that, you know, the circumstances that I found myself in were ones where I was included, and that was allowed to then turn into advice that people took or were willing to hear. Because sometimes someone can put you forward for something, but if the people that you're going to go and work with aren't open to it, it won't work. So, yeah, I think I was lucky to work with lots of people who didn't see me for my gender. They saw me for what I could deliver.
So how long was your actual deployment in Afghanistan when you went over?
Like 6 or 7 months. So we went in September, came out Marchish. That's both my deployments were that window. And yeah, when I came back, so Will had started school during that time, so had gone off to prep. There's a lot of, you know, big changes that come with that sort of stage of life. And I sort of knew then that it was a combination of things. I wanted to be home a bit more. I wanted a different sort of or different scope to be able to spend more time at home and doing family things and that sort of stuff. I also felt like, you know, that was the peak of my career. I was like, shit, what am I going to do from here that's ever going to be better than that? So I think I was ready to take the next step and to go, okay, well, I think I might wrap up my military career and see what else I can do and see what else is out there for me.
So what was your greatest achievement in Afghanistan? What did you feel that you got out of that deployment, and what was the most challenging part of that deployment for you?
I think, like, you know, the most satisfying thing when your job is to keep people safe is that people come home safe. So there was no loss of Australian lives on our deployment, and I think that it is due to a multitude of factors, including sometimes they just didn't go into places that were way too high risk, right? There was some big risk aversion that happened. But despite that, you know, you do feel like your job's contributed to that. And so, you know, I'm really pleased that that was something that our team was able to do, that we were able to deliver that intelligence in a way that meant that people came home safe. And there's also, you know, interactions with the Afghani people and the villagers there, and the moves that we made to make life better for those people, and also to get those people out of harm's way at times in terms of what the intelligence we were able to receive, was also really satisfying. Again, overall mission, should we be there, all those sort of things. They're not questions that you ask yourself when you're there on the ground. What you concentrate on is your mission and the things you can control. And so, you know, there's a sense of satisfaction about that work as well, and being able to prevent people being raped, being killed, all those sort of things. You know, what was challenging? Lots of things. Yeah, well, it was cold, yeah. Lots of things, again. You know, it's obviously really different culturally. So, you know, you'd go into villages and none of the men would talk to you or interact with you whatsoever. And, you know, but then the women would. And so there was real advantages to that. And we saw all militaries really adapt their strategies around how they engaged with women in the community by using women soldiers as well after that. But that was it was really challenging, those attitudes. I'm a massive feminist, right? Always have been. And so to see the oppression that women lived under there, and girls, and that just no ability, not allowed to get an education, not allowed to have an opinion, not allowed to show your face, and that's presented as choices that they're making just pisses me off. And so, you know, having to put that aside and just do the work, do the bits I could control, you know, that was really challenging for me. I did not like the way women were treated in that environment. And but it was not our job to change culture of another country. It is our job to, you know, deliver what we needed to in that mission over there. So that I found that really challenging. There's all the physical stuff and job and away from your family and all those things, right, that obviously normal people would have said first. But for me, what I found really hard was, yeah, that real cultural clash.
Absolutely. And I think a couple of other veterans that I spoke to as well, Rach, they said the same thing, that they found the hardest thing was the cultural difference and the clashes in the, you know, like, as you say, the men wouldn't talk to you. Doesn't happen in our country, in Australia. Like, men talk to women, and it's over there, totally different experience. And it would be a challenge to say, though. You talk about that you come back from Afghanistan, you then wrap up your military career. How hard was it for you then to go from your military career to a civilian career? And was it hard for you, or did you just jump straight in and find it an easy transition?
Probably some elements that were easy and some that were really challenging. So I knew I wanted to get out. I had a bunch of leave up my sleeve. So I came back from Afghanistan, did all my decompression stuff, and then, you know, had a bunch of leave before I was actually going to discharge. Came back to the unit, told me I had to come back. And I was like, why do I have to come back? I'm on leave, guys. Give me a break. They're like, you've got to be in uniform. And I ended up being awarded accommodation for my work in Afghanistan. And that was a real shock, you know. I was not expecting that at all. But I think that also contributed to me being able to feel like I was going out having achieved something really big. I think, you know, the military does some acknowledgement of service or appreciation and those sort of things really well, but there's other things that, you know, I talk to other veterans when they leave, and it's quite undramatic. I mean, you don't want to be dramatic, but there's they feel a bit unfulfilled as they just sort of peter out the end of their service and go on to whatever's next. That they don't feel acknowledged, and I think I was lucky that I did feel that. I did feel like my service was appreciated and acknowledged and all those sort of things, and so. I had 6 months where I had leave. I went and hung out with the prep kids as they did swimming lessons and all that sort of stuff, and had a really great time. Also made me realise I didn't want any more than one child, because like a room full of preppies is a lot. Enjoyed that, and then started to think about, okay, well, what's next, and what sort of career do I want next? I had done a lot of accounting and maths and all that sort of stuff at school, and so decided that banking might be a good fit. Did up my resume and walked around town. We were living in Toowoomba at the time, dropped it off hoping to get sort of a teller job. Had a few interviews for those things. But one of the branches that I went to when I'd handed in the resume, and these are things you just don't know in the world, right? I'd handed my resume over to the counter to this lady, and she said, yeah, no worries, I'll pass it to the manager and we'll see, thanks very much for coming in. Turns out her daughter was in the RAF and was in East Timor at exactly the same time I was. We didn't know each other. She didn't actually know me at all. But that affiliation of, I know the type of person my daughter is, the type of leader she is, the type of attitude she has, I think that would be great for our team. And so she put my resume forward. But what she put my resume forward for was being the branch manager, not just joining as a teller. And so as I went through that process, I'm like, oh my God, they're interviewing me to lead this team. Like, I am definitely not capable. I don't have any of the competencies, that you might need, that you'd expect to come into that sort of position. But again, great leaders with open attitudes. Their attitude was, well, we've had bankers that we've promoted into this job before and it hasn't always worked. We think, the culture and the leadership that you're going to bring here, we can teach you the banking. And so, I left the army on the 1st of Jan 2008, and I started as the branch manager at Toowoomba at one of the banks there in Feb 18, 2008. So 6 weeks later, I walked into a really amazing job with a really great team who were really open to my unconventional background coming into that. And so that element, I was really lucky, and it was easy. It was easy for me to find my next job. And I think that was a combination of, I had asked a lot of my mates and their partners who weren't necessarily military, what does my resume need to look like? Or what sort of jobs do you think are good? Why do you like your job? Exactly what is it? Because, we know people's jobs from a job title, right? I'm a bank manager, but what does that mean you do every day, and how many hours do you work, and what sort of things do you have to deal with? And that's the stuff we often don't know, we don't scratch beneath the surface on. And so that was the sort of questions I asked, and I think their honesty and their openness really helped me to set myself up transition wise to going into my next job. But there's elements that are hard. I'd been in the army for nearly 11 years, and since I was 17, that was a huge part of my identity. It was a big part of how I thought I brought value to the world, and who I did, what I was passionate about, and all those sort of things. I'd work with purpose and meaning, and it was important for me to do a really great job. And there was a culture shock as I came back out of the military to realise that I needed to choose those things for myself now. So it wasn't a pre-built set of values or standards or things that people saw in me when they knew I was a soldier. I actually had to reshape that for myself now that I'm a bank manager, because they think you have a different bunch of traits when you're that person. And so, I got to... that took time, right? And I don't know if there's a cheat sheet. There's definitely things we can do better in terms of helping people transition, but I don't know if there's a cheat code you can use to just re-find your identity. I think part of it is time. You do have to figure out, well, who do I want to be now, and how do I want to spend my time, and do I find my passion in my work, or do I find it in other projects or things that I do? Do I find meaning in what I do because of my work like I used to, or does that come from some other activities that I engage in? Who are my mates now? Because I don't just have to have my issued ones, which I love lots of my issued ones, but that's not your only choice anymore, right? You can actually go out and actively find mates that might be linked through your hobby or your sport or whatever, like they live in your street.
So for you, did you find that after leaving the army and then going into like the corporate world, and people who were in the corporate world didn't have a military background, did you find that hard working with them, or was it relatively easy? And how hard was that for you going from military team to then corporate, different team, non-military background? How was that?
Yeah, big adjustment. And that you... that what we spoke about before, where you're saying that everybody there is giving their all every single day because they know that it's it sounds ridiculous, but it can be life and death, right? It's not the same. And so how do you help people find their reason to rock up to work and give their best or do their best or deliver on, everything that they said that they're going to? And that's not the case for everyone. Not everyone's living their passion, right? We don't always have the privilege of being able to do a job that we feel really great about. Sometimes we're doing a job because I need the cash money, that's fine. But it's about then helping people find, well, what is it about this job that you do like? What are the strengths that you have here? What are the bits of it that you do find that are interesting and exciting and light a fire in you? And I think that's where that leadership stuff that I learnt in the military about understanding that not everybody's exactly the same, that actually they've all got different strengths. So how do you build your team to be able to let people play to more of those strengths? How do you help people uncover what is a strength for them that they might not realise that they have? And so there was some, culture clash as I came out of the military and into corporate. But there was other things that, I had a lot to learn. There was a lot... there's a lot about military leadership that's really great, but there's some other stuff that, corporate's doing a lot better. And so, being a more inclusive leader is definitely something that came out of corporate, valuing that diversity and understanding that if we don't look like the community that we represent, then we'll never really do a good job of delivering service. And, that's... the military's come a long way since I was in, but... definitely there's some corporate organisations that are really pushing the barrier there and doing a great job, and so I had a lot to learn too.
So how do you feel like, obviously you talk to a lot of veterans because you've gone into motivational speaking and talk and corporate speaking, and with veterans who you speak to, some of the veterans that I've spoken to say when they leave the army, they lose their sense of purpose. And they find it hard to go into like a corporate world, or what comes next. What do you feel that there's programs that can be put in place to help them, or?
I think, programs and that sort of stuff can work, but really it comes down to you as an individual, right? Like, you need to design your own life now, because a lot of it you don't get a choice on in the military. So where you might live or where you get posted, when you get told you're ready for promotion, that sort of stuff all sort of happens as part of a process within the military. You don't always drive that. The thing that I talk to lots of veterans about when I'm talking to them about their transition is that you get to own that now. You get to decide how fast you climb the corporate ladder. You get to decide where you want to do that from. You get to decide, what it is you do for work, what it is you do for fun, and what it is you do that, aligns to your passions. And so that purpose doesn't always have to come from work. I think a lot of people do find passion and purpose in their work, and that's fantastic, but it's not the only place to find it. So you don't have to be looking for work only that makes you go, I'm saving the world. That will be great work, and often that will have lots of connections back to the military vibe. But you can also just find work that is just work, and you can find that stuff that makes you go, I fucking love doing this in all the things outside of work, whether that's where you volunteer or how you interact with your community or things that you do with your family or your kids or your home. It doesn't always have to be colossal. It can be in all sorts of ways and shapes. And that takes lots of self-reflection, right, to figure that out. And so, that's why I say, there's programs that can come in, but really it's up to you. It's up to you to go, well, that was my identity. That was where I found my purpose. So what do I want to do about that now? Where do I want to find my purpose? What do I want my identity to be? What's the shit that's important to me? You get to choose that and take that agency back for yourself. And that's the stuff that I think... there's potentially programs that can help you find more of your own agency, but that shit none of that shit's going to happen. Doing a program is not going to make it happen. You've got to do it. You've got to drive it. You've got to choose it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that the Army has terminology that civilians wouldn't be familiar with. You use one of those terms to highlight the importance of teamwork and everyone's playing their part. Can you share with us and share with our listeners what being Jack is and how that principle is important not only in the military term but also in life?
Yeah. Well, military listeners will already know this, but yeah. I mean, getting called Jack's a pretty big insult in the military, and so despite all the general swearing that goes on, that's all friendly banter. But getting called Jack's the really bad thing, and basically it means you're worrying about yourself and you're not worrying about the broader team. So, you rock up to the team meeting and you've got a coffee, but you didn't get one for anyone else. That's Jack. Your team's off delivering some program for someone somewhere and you're supposed to be back at the bays getting something sorted and you don't do the shit you're supposed to do. That's Jack. It's pretty much, you're not delivering on your part of whatever's supposed to happen for the team. Doesn't always mean doing exactly what all the other team members are doing, but it means doing your part and not bludging off, right? When you see an opportunity to take a quick nap, don't take it unless you can get everyone else in the team a quick nap also. So yeah, it's part of that. I think it's part of that high performance culture that the military really gets you invested in as an individual, that I want to do my best and be my best. Part of that is also highlighting what's not those things, and that's Jack. Like that's people being able to call that out, and that honesty we spoke about right at the start, that you don't hide it from someone when you think they've done a shit job or that they were being Jack, that you tell them.
Yeah, and we've all, Rach, you've seen it in the military, you've seen it in the corporate world. We've all been in that position where we've had someone beat Jack, or we've been guilty of it ourselves. And I put my hand up. There's been times where I've gone, I'm not doing that. That's not my job. Like, and it's, I was Jack. Yeah, literally. Like I was Jack. And you sit there, and when you read it in your book, I actually straight away went, oh yeah, I've been there. I've done that. And we've all the listeners, everyone knows they've been with someone, they've been a Jack throughout their whole life. Everyone's been there and done and seen that. So you climb the corporate ladder, so you're doing really well. And in 2018, you were awarded the Veteran Employee of the Year, the Prime Minister's Veterans Employee Awards. Tell us what that award means to you, and how did that come about?
Absolutely ridiculous. Like I am a lucky bastard and have found myself in great teams with great people, with just really cool opportunities at random times that align. So let's just make sure we preface everything with that. I was utterly shocked. So it was a new awards that had been stood up to try and encourage the community to look at veterans as people that they could employ as someone who's going to bring you a lot of value. A lot of the time when you're trying to employ someone, you go, oh, well, I want a bank manager. Let's get someone who's been a bank manager before because that'll be a good fit, right? What the Veterans Employment Awards were looking at doing was trying to encourage organisations to go, well, who's someone who might not fit the traditional mould of who we might hire that could bring us a range of different skills and experiences and that we can teach some of the technical stuff too. So, exactly the opportunity that I had when someone employed me as a bank manager, but on a broader context in all sorts of organisations. So it makes a lot of sense for people when they leave defence to join defence industry and things where they've got some technical skills they're bringing across, as well as, culturally often there's a good fit. The Prime Minister's Employment Awards was trying to broaden that context into corporate and into other areas where people starting their own businesses, that to acknowledge those organisations and individuals who were doing well, to show the way that veterans can add a lot to business. The category I was nominated for was Employee of the Year, and there was a couple of other really amazing finalists that were in there. And so when I got told I was nominated, I was utterly shocked. It was someone who I worked with at the bank who had nominated me. Was absolutely floored that they'd nominated me and that I was a finalist. And then when we were going down there, I said, I actually invited my son first. I said, "Oh, do you want to come?" My other half was at work, and he said, "No, Mum, sounds boring. I don't want to meet the Prime Minister." I'm like, "Okay, that's fair enough. Nothing like a 15-year-old to manage your ego." So I invited a couple of my mates, and I said, "Hey, come down with me. We'll get to go to Parliament House and go to dinner, and we can drink a bit of free wine. It'll be a good time." And they're like, "Oh yeah, aren't you nominated for something?" I'm like, "That ain't coming near me. Like, we'll just be there for the wine." So we went, and I was utterly shocked to be named that award winner. And I think that a lot of it's a reflection of what do we want people to do? What do we want organisations to do? I was lucky to join an organisation that was willing to give me a chance to step into a role that was non-traditional. And then I was lucky to find people in that organisation that valued what I could bring and would teach me the bits I had gaps in. Then, I worked, I did the work that I needed to grow and learn and figure out how to succeed in this new world. And then, as that started to happen, then people pulled me into new interesting positions or offered me roles that would give me a secondment to do something that I'd learn a new skill at, that then opened the next door. I think I mentioned some of this before. We sometimes get opportunities that we don't think we want or that we think might be a bit of a crap job. Definitely some of those that I've said yes to have been the thing that have opened the door to the amazing job. One of the jobs that I had was about closing down a business, and I'd never done a business shutdown. It was in Asia. I'd never worked in Asia. It was all this stuff that was so out of my wheelhouse of capability, and that people had been trying to do it for a year and hadn't been able to succeed. So I was like, am I being handed something that's a definite fail here? But I said yes anyway, because I wanted to broaden my skill set, and I'd just worked in retail branches and that side of the business. I wanted to broaden my skill set, so this was the chance I had. So I said yes, and I went and did it, and then that opened the job for me to work in inclusion diversity, to design veterans hiring program, autism hiring program, to work with women in leadership and do all this work that really had a lot of purpose and passion for me. I had to say yes to the job that was awful, but it actually wasn't awful. It was a whole bunch of new experiences that I needed to have to be able to step into that next level. So, I think, that award was an acknowledgement of that experience. So I think that it's far more about the organisation that I joined and the leaders and that attitude of giving people a chance to do something that's outside their real experience rather than actually being me. It's the story of me. And I think, lots of military people, they've got that story in them. That is their journey. That didn't that sound like I was on some sort of terrible reality TV show? It was their journey. But that's their experience. So, it's a moment of acknowledgement for a much broader thing than just what I rocked up with.
I think what you touched on too is from your military career, and when you wrote it in your book, which we'll talk about in a minute, your senior commanders say, Rach, say yes. And what you touched on in the podcast, say yes to everything. Go and say yes. And like you said, that job that you didn't want, you said yes to, and it opened more doors. And I think what you've said throughout the whole podcast is say yes, even though sometimes it can be the most boring job, or you never know what's the next opportunity, the next stepping stone that can come from just saying those three little words, yes. You don't know what is around the corner. And like you said, working with autism, doing all these things, that award, you didn't know that you were going to get that award. It was out of your grasp, and you're like, oh yeah, let's go down and let's just have some wine and have a good weekend. It shows to me and to the listeners that your hard work was recognised, and and it's just that simple saying yes opened so many doors for you, and well done, congratulations.
Thank you. And it was such great advice I got early in my career from Woman, who was a warrant officer at the time, who there's people that go before you that forge the paths, and absolutely those women that were before us in the military, and when they integrated women into all the regular jobs and everything else that started to happen, they absolutely busted down so many doors. For us to just be able to wander in and go, yeah, of course I'm going to be on patrol. That doesn't happen unless people do heaps and heaps of work before that. And, you know, I was really reluctant to get promoted. I really didn't want the responsibility or leadership or any of that sort of stuff. And she really said to me, you just got to say yes to these things when they come up. And even if you don't think you're ready, just jump in, you will figure it out. And, you know, we talked earlier today, sometimes you make mistakes when you take on a new role or when you take on leadership. That's all part of it. You've got to accept that. It's, you know, it's surfing. If I want to get good at surfing, I'm going to have to eat a bunch of shit because I'm going to have to try and catch waves that are bigger than the ones I caught before. Like, it's all of it is about risk and about saying I'm prepared to accept this risk because I know it will give me more than what it will take from me.
Absolutely. And also in 2018, you gave a TED talk about leadership and especially commanders' intent. What is it that for you transferred from the army of the principles of being to corporate and then also into everyday life? What was it about that talk that gave that? And can you tell us what a TED talk is?
Yeah, so people that don't know, a TED talk is it's like a 8 to 12 minute talk that I think it's Technical Education Design is the original acronym, and it is something that someone who's an expert, I'm saying that in inverted commas, talks about something that they know, some research that they've done, that they deliver to an audience. So you don't have any cue cards, you don't have any PowerPoint slides, really. It's just you delivering something that you're a knowledge expert on to a crowd to provoke new thinking. It's like an ideas type of it really sparks a heap of ideas. And you've probably seen a TED talk, even if you think you haven't. And if you Google it, you'll get a whole bunch. And definitely check out the ones that are top 10 in the world because they're amazing. And what I think is so powerful about the TED concept is it's so broad. So, you know, you might hear about the power of positive thinking, or you might hear about how your body language shapes how you think. You might hear about the power of vulnerability. You might hear about, you know, all these other concepts that are things that you actually are part of your vernacular. They're in your everyday life because of the leaders that you work with or people that you talk to. They actually came from these sparks of ideas that were TED Talks, people talking about things that they'd done research on that they then delivered in a way that you go, wow, that's so interesting, I want to know more. So the organisation I worked for at the bank, they partnered with TED and allowed everyone in the organisation to come up, send them a 1-minute video about what you think your TED Talk idea is, and you know, you sort of went through a process of selection to be out. They chose 12 people in the end to give TED Talks. We were really lucky to be coached by TED New York, so we had, you know, Skype meetings with people over there that helped you craft what your talk was going to be about. But when I did my 1-minute pitch, I'm like, I'd been in the bank about a decade then, and I realised just how much I learnt on my military skills to do in every role I went to at the bank. So as I sort of moved into different roles that were less about just leading big teams and more about trying to design the shape and the culture of the bank, or programs that are innovative, that I was leaning on the critical thinking and analytical skills that I'd had to use when I was in EW. I was leaning on my, you know, influencing leaders way above me in the chain skills that were part of my job when I was a corporal and having to get a major to do what I wanted. You know, I realised just how much of, although I'd been quite corporatised, I still really lent on what I'd learnt in the military. And so I thought, well, that's a really interesting concept. And what do I think it is that could explain that? And so I spoke about commander's intent, and I think it's called Mission Command. And if you go watch the TED Talk and you're in the military, you'll probably criticise me for not actually including it all. But part of a TED Talk is also there's an entertainment factor to it, right? I can't give too many exceptions or anything else. You've got to try and you're talking about it as a concept that someone can pick up and then work with. And what I think the military does really well with commander's intent, it's this idea that you give the mission outcome, everybody understands how their role contributes to the mission outcome, and then you let people get the fuck on with doing their job really well. Sometimes corporate and other big organisations, government organisations as well, they might have their mission, but sometimes it's a bit cloudy or it's a bit wishy-washy. People sometimes understand exactly what their role is within that, but sometimes they don't understand how their role fits in with others. But then definitely in terms of get out of their way and let them execute, that can be a real failure for organisations and businesses. And so those sort of three pillars there that get really sharp on exactly what we're here to deliver, make sure people are crystal clear on what their role is and how that contributes to that, achieving that mission, and then get out of their way and let them design it as they deliver, with the sort of three elements I spoke about in Commander's Intent TED Talk. And, you know, it resonates with people. It resonates with senior leaders because they know that. They know they've got to let their people have the power, but sometimes it can be really hard to give that up. They know they need crystal clear clarity on their mission and how each team within that, you know, is delivering. But again, it can be hard to get there when it's not, you know, take that hill. It's, you know, something that is a bit more wishy-washy, or it's less sexy and they don't want to talk about it, like you've got to deliver X amount to shareholders. So, you know, I think TED Talks are about ideas that provoke different thinking. And I think, you know, where that resonated both within the organisation and with TED was that it does provoke different thinking. It does force you as a leader to reflect on, do I do enough of each of those three elements, or what could I be doing more or different about that? Yeah.
So you last year, so TED Talk, and then last year, so 2020, you published your book, Dauntless Leadership, Lessons from the Front Line, where you draw upon your army experience to highlight core concepts of leadership. What has been the response for both your veterans and corporate colleagues? What have they thought about the book, and what was your motivation in writing the book?
Yeah, so I ended up probably in a similar position with the bank as I did with the military, right? Had a really amazing job. I was able to deliver really, really amazing programs, but the bank was going through a big restructure at the time, and one of the opportunities that came up was I was offered a redundancy. And I mean, that hits your ego. Even when you are actually going, oh, this is a cool opportunity, it still hits your ego. You've got to go through that same thing where you go, well, my new identity is around what I do as a job now and what I deliver and who I help and all those sort of things. So I'm going to have to accept that I'll go through that whole transition again of reshaping those things if I don't have this job anymore. But I went, you know what, it's the right time of life. Our son was approaching his final year, like year 11 and 12 and that sort of thing. It'll give us a bit of breathing room to actually, you know, parent now and then, and get him to all the sports and things that kids inevitably do. So I took the redundancy and jumped off that cliff as well. And I went, well, what do I want to do with my time now? And after doing the TED Talk, and a few people had told me, you know, I should write a book, and I felt really uncomfortable writing like a biography or something like that. Hopefully there's a few years left in me yet. And also it's, I don't know, like, yeah, I'm a total egocentric, arrogant bastard, right? But even that felt like too far for me. So I went, actually, I think there's a lot more value in trying to draw out what was in that TED Talk, you know, some of those concepts about, well, what's the experience that I've had in the military that actually taught me a lesson that then I applied in the corporate world, and what was the outcome of that, and what can other people do? You know, although I spent a lot of the time at the end of my career working with really, really senior executives, I really feel like, you know, leadership starts at that front line, that first team you lead and all those sort of things. And a lot of the stuff that I think that I've learnt is that. It's that type of leadership where you're there with your team and you're the one that's doing it with them and that sort of stuff. So that's where the book comes from, and it follows that format. When I started writing, so writing's another one of those things that you just got to show up and do every day, right? Go and write the words. You can't edit nothing, so it doesn't matter if they're shit. It's important that you do it and that you're consistent. You can't wait for inspiration to do your writing. You've just got to show up every day and write the damn words. And when I started doing that, I needed some sort of structure. And so I went, well, let's figure out some stories, and let's figure out, well, what's the lesson I learnt from that? And then let's figure out, well, how did I apply that in corporate, and what's the stuff I can take out of that? And although that was very much a structure to just start the writing, that's how the book reads now. It's got those chapter headings for each of the topics around culture or teamwork or whatever it is we're talking about. because it's the stories that's what is interesting about people. You know, you meet anyone, and what makes their insight interesting is the story behind it, not the insight. There's nothing in that book that's a new leadership concept. It's all shit you know before or have experienced before, but it's about how did that apply in a military context and a different context, and then how are those linked? You know, why is it that those leadership principles or those concepts work when we look at it through the lens of, well, how does it work in the military as well?
I've read your book and it's a fascinating read, Rach, and it's something that I was telling you before. I've actually started to implement some of those things into my RFS being a crew leader, and it's like I've really got a lot out of that book. I really have, and it's been a great insight to me. And like you touched on, leadership's not something that it's not taught. It's you've got to be thrown in the deep end sometimes and fuck up, make mistakes, and you learn from those mistakes. And for me, it's a very powerful book because I've looked at some of those things, and it's, I guess, me not being in the military, even though you said it yourself, you've learnt those, like, people know what leadership is, they know what it's about. And for someone like my age, it was a real insightful book because I grabbed a lot of those things and went, hey, actually, I might try some of those things. And it made me reassess being a crew leader and trying some of those things. And I've tried some of those things, and I can tell you that they work. They're brilliant. So well done. And I think, like, for you, the book is, it's a powerful book. It's a great read, and you should be very proud of it. And for the listeners, how do they get a copy? Where do they get a copy if they haven't got a copy? Where do they get a copy of the book?
So you can jump onto my website, which is rachranton.com, and you can order a copy there. Or you can also get it like anywhere in your local bookshop. So it won't be on every shelf, but you can go and ask it if you want to support your local bookstore. Go and ask them for a copy. They'll be able to order you one in.
Yeah, nice. And what projects are you currently working on now, Rach? What have you got in the pipelines, and what's coming up for you after your book?
Moving into a new phase of life, right? Our son is an adult and off starting to have his own adventures in his own life. And so Damo and I are also at another crossroads going, well, what do we want to do with our life now that we're in a new phase? So we're wrapping up traditional work and going to spend 2 years on the road, driving around Australia, going fishing, camping, surfing, and going to all our favourite places and checking out a whole bunch of new ones. So that's the next couple of years, and figure out where we want to live next. I'm writing a sci-fi novel whilst I'm doing that, because why would I write in the same genre when I can do something completely new? I'm learning to surf, that I've obviously talked about 100 times. For anyone who sees me, I'm completely illegitimate. Like, I'm unco old lady surfing badly. So, make sure your expectations are set right. If you meet me somewhere out there and expect me to be able to surf, I definitely can't. But yeah, I guess we are at a new phase of our life. And so, we're pursuing some of our passions and having a bit of space and downtime. And yeah, I think I still do a lot of work with veterans. You asked me before and I forgot to answer about, what do veterans and your mates and that think of the book. The people around me have been so fucking awesome, like amazing. I was terrified to put my head up above the parapet and do something like write a book or speak about veterans issues, and because I see how much we shoot everyone down, right? We're our own worst enemy sometimes when it comes to that, but I've been really lucky, everyone's been so supportive. They've been amazing. My mates have bought the book. I'm like, it's not going to teach you anything. You've lived all these same experiences as me. But they're like, I want to support you and I want to hear about it. And I think you've done something interesting or whatever. Like, they've been amazing. And same with all my civvy mates, that they stand around you and they say, I want you to be successful. I want to see what you do next. And, get those people in your life if you don't have them. I'm incredibly privileged to have such a great network of support around me, which includes Damo and Will as my family, but, that broader context, my mates and fam and all those people that, they back you. And that's when you're jumping into those things that you think you might not be able to do, they're the people that go, you definitely can, just keep going, It's, I'm lucky to have it.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I got you on the podcast, was because I wanted to support you as well, because the book is fantastic, and your story, Rach, it's an inspirational story. It really is, and I mean, you might sit across from me and go, well, it's not that inspirational, but it is. Like for the people who are, it leads me into the last question that I'll ask you is, what advice would you give to people who are at that crossroad of maybe taking on that new challenge, or having the guts to stick the head above the parapet and maybe go into the corporate world, or go into business for their own self? What advice would you give to them?
I guess, just go do stuff, right? Like, say yes to things, even if you think they're not the best opportunity ever. Say yes, you never know what door it'll open up. At the same time, you are in charge of your destiny. You get to make the choices. And there's shit that goes on around you that gets in your way, or that means you don't have all the choices you might want. But ultimately, you'll only get that control when you start making the choices. I'm obviously saying this from an enormously privileged position of someone who's had a good job, who's white, who's middle class. Like, there's a lot of privilege that I have in saying this, but there's always power you can find in your life. So take it, like, make the choices, be in control, investigate your shit and go, who do I want to be and where do I want to end up, and what are the things I want out of life? And then once you know that stuff, make the choices that start getting you there.
Absolutely. And I think also too, Rach, it's hard work. It's not just, and you say you're privileged. No, you've worked bloody hard to get to where you are as well. And don't ever forget that. You've worked so hard to get to where you are. And I think sometimes people forget that it's hard work that you have to put in to achieve anything. That's it. Keep showing up. Just keep showing up, like you've said throughout the whole podcast. So, Rach, on that note, we'll end the podcast. And thank you so much for coming on True Blue History. And all I can say is thank you for your service. Thank you for your military service. And congratulations on everything that you've achieved. And thank you for coming on True Blue History. So, Rach Ranton, thank you.
Thank you, Ads. It's been amazing.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And if you feel like supporting us, you can now via our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/True Blue History, or buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/True Blue History, and check out our new website, truebluehistory.com, for more great content.